So I'm moving on to a new project on the boat. This past winter I spent working on the doghouse, and as it turns into spring and then summer here, I would like to start working on projects that are outside of the bow shed. And so this next project that we're going to be working on is modifying the stern and the cockpit. My name is Matt. Follow along as I turn Duracell, the legendary ocean racing sailboat, into a comfortable cruising home. So the next part of the project is to modify the stern and the cockpit of the boat. The overall goal of this entire refit is to turn the boat from a ocean racing yacht into a comfortable and fast cruising home for us. And so this pretty big modification to the cockpit and the stern is going to help achieve that goal. We want both a big, airy doghouse, which we now have, and we also want a nice big cockpit, which is good for short-handed sailing, lots of room for short-handed sailing, has room to host lots of guests when we're cruising and at anchor, and is also has easy access from the water with a swim step. The original cockpit was forward of the traveler bulkhead and aft of the doghouse. Now that we've extended the doghouse aft, we've covered the old cockpit, and we are now left with a small cockpit. We need the cockpit to accommodate benches, winches, helms, a swim step, and so it's necessary that we expand the cockpit. Luckily for us, Duracell has what is known as a reverse transom, and this reverse transom is going to allow us to expand the cockpit without making the boat any longer. By the way, a transom is the aft face of the boat. The stern is the back of the boat, which could include the cockpit and the transom. Our Open 60 Duracell was designed with a reverse transom, which means that rather than a vertical transom, the transom is gradually sloped away from the boat. They were designed this way, we guess, to shave weight off the boat while maintaining the length of the boat. Longer boats go faster. How we are going to expand the cockpit is by making the transom more vertical. This in turn will make the side decks longer, the cockpit sole longer, and it will give us a swim step. So this is a copy of the original lines drawing that Roger Martin did for the boat. And at the stern, the lines that make up the boat kind of extend out into infinity. And what he did was basically cut the boat off at 60 feet and draw the transom that is currently on the boat. And all that we're going to do is take those lines that he drew and use them to find the shape of the hull and fill in that area that he cut off, making the cockpit bigger for us. I mocked up what the hull shape of the stern will look like. This mock-up is a very rough draft. I just wanted to see what it will look like from the side, and there's not much accuracy in it. You can see that the future transom will be closer to vertical. I like this new look. To come up with Duracell's new stern design, I thought a lot about the boats that I had sailed on previously that had sterns that I really liked, and I studied a lot of boats that are the same size and vintage that Duracell is. I wanted to design something that was not too difficult to build, but also looked really nice. It's important to us to have simplicity and functionality. I like the step leading up to the deck on this one, but I wish the cockpit was open, and I wish that the swim step was a little bit wider. Also, notice the open 60 to the left of this boat. This one is an older Sundeer, which I really love dash shoe boats, but I'm not a huge fan of the sugar scoop look. I really like the simplicity and how clean this one looks, apart from the fact that it's not an open cockpit. I love this Andrew 70 cockpit and open stern look with the wide steps that lead up to the cockpit sole. Unfortunately for us, I don't think we have the room on Duracell to make this happen. The Sundeer 60 is kind of the model boat that we're going after with Duracell, and I love the look of this transom swim step stern look, except that it's not an open cockpit. But otherwise, I love how wide the swim step is and how clean and easy it looks to build. So there is a lot to do to get prepared for doing this stern modification. And the first thing I'm going to do is clean out the space that's underneath this stern cockpit area. And I'm very curious to see what I'm going to find.
The Duracell mole rat has adopted a brilliant evolutionary strategy. The Duracell mole rat burrows in the transom of retired racing boats. This mole rat is tidying its burrow in preparation for tomorrow's foraging trip in the forest.
Moving right along, I did in fact find some interesting things. I found on the watertight bulkhead on the aft port side, this stamp that says Hull MP number 2, which is basically Mike Plant's signature, saying this is the second hull that Mike Plant, built. So this is the contraption that was under the deck that was used to steer the boat. The black part forward is kind of a gearbox that the helm was connected to that part that's sticking out towards me, and that which turns. So the helm was connected to this via a chain and then kind of an axle, and then when that turns, it turns this big tiller, which was under the deck, and those pushed these giant linkages that were attached to, I guess you could call these quadrants, they're more like tillers, that were on the rudder stocks. So it was a big beefy system to push the rudders. The next task to prepare for the transom build was to move my ramp steps over to the side of the boat. I began sanding the first of my many sanding projects, and the reason I'm sanding this down to fiberglass is so that the new hull modification will be attached fiberglass to fiberglass all the way around wherever I'm building a part. we had a very exciting week this week and lots of new Patreons, and so we're excited to thank the new Patreons that we have on board. And so first, thank you to John, who has some wanderlust and is really inspired by Duracell's place in American racing history.
Thank you so much to Linda, who is a friend of my mom's and assistant dog walker to my mom.
And thanks to Nick, who grew up in a racing and cruising family and also went to Evergreen and started the sailing team there at Evergreen. It's awesome.
Thank you so much, Scott, who has had a lifelong love of the ocean and racing and has plans to become a van lifer once he retires as an EMT.
Yeah, and thanks to Russell. He is a welder, shipbuilder, boilermaker, and is also on the hunt for a junk rig for his own boat, which I love junk rigs.
Thank you to Joe. Joe and his wife work for a school district, which as a former middle school science teacher, I can really appreciate the hard and important work that they're doing.
And thanks to Tom and Jen. Tom is now realizing his own dream of building a sailboat.
Thank you so much, Greg. Greg is currently building a Wellsford Navigator. He also spent an afternoon on Duracell in the early 90s when it first came to Seattle.
And thank you to Jan. Jan is in the Netherlands and he is modernizing his own Catalina right now. Thank you lastly to Bobby and Terry and Craig and Noel. We didn't hear back from them, but we are very excited to have them aboard. So thanks again to everybody. If you're interested in joining the Patreon community, go to the Duracell Project on patreon.com. So thanks again.